Greetings, brother. You come seeking the tale of MORIBAR. Sit and listen well. For this is not merely a story of war, but of will. It is the memory of a fire that refused to die, told by those who stood upon its ashes. MORIBAR was not a world of glory. It was a place of smoke and ruin long before we came to it, a mining moon cracked open by centuries of greed. Beneath its crust were oceans of magma, caged and bound to power the engines of imperial industry. But something woke beneath those molten seas, something that hated the light of man. When we arrived, the air was already thick with ash. The sky burned red, and the ground split beneath our feet. From the chasms poured the armies of the Dark Mechanicum heretics and Daemon forges, machines that screamed in languages of pain. They had come to claim the forges of MORIBAR and turn them into altars of ruin. Our fleet made orbit above a dying world. The Vox crackled with the cries of the innocent, the prayers of the desperate, the howling of things that were not men. We knew then that MORIBAR was lost, but Vulcan's sons do not measure worth in victory alone. We came not to claim, but to protect, not to conquer, but to endure. When the drop pods fell, they struck like meteors. The heat of re-entry was nothing compared to the fire waiting below. The moment our boots touched the soil, the ground quaked. The forges of MORIBAR had become weapons. Entire mountains belched flame, and rivers of molten metal carved through the cities. I remember the smell of iron and blood. I remember the taste of ash on my tongue. I remember the sight of Brother Marnock, wading through a tide of steel, his armor glowing white-hot as he struck down the heretic beasts. And I remember the voice of our Forge Father, calm, steady, unyielding, cutting through the chaos like a hammer through iron. He said only this: the forge burns brighter in the storm. And so it did. We made our stand upon the ashen plains, at the base of the great Manufactorum. Behind us, 1,000 refugees, huddled in fear. Before us, legions of corrupted engines, their bodies fused with flesh and hate. And between those two fires, the Salamanders held the line. We did not come to win. We came to give the galaxy one more day of light. That is the first lesson of MORIBAR, brother, that even in the heart of despair, fire has meaning. There are battles that break armies, and there are battles that forge them anew. The siege of MORIBAR was both. For 7 days and 7 nights, the enemy came waves of metal and madness, their weapons glowing with stolen flame. They believed they could unmake us with our own art, twist the Forge's gift into the chains of the damned. But they had forgotten what it means to be Salamander. They had forgotten that to us, fire is not a weapon. It is faith. When the Manufactorum walls fell, we fought from the ruins. When the air turned toxic, we sealed our helms and prayed. When the ground split, we bridged the fissures with our dead. Every brother that fell became another step for the next to rise. I remember Brother Amon, our pyre guard, who carried the wounded across a river of molten slag. His armor melted into his flesh, his bones fused with ceramite. Yet he kept walking. When he finally fell, his last act was to lift a child to safety. His body sank into the fire, and when the flames died, his silhouette remained cast in black glass, unbroken. We left it there. We still speak his name. The enemy thought to break us through pain. They did not understand pain is the language of the Forge. Every burn, every wound, every scar only made us harder. By the 5th night, our ammo was gone. By the 6th, our power packs bled dry. But still we fought. Hammer and blade, torch and will. The Forge Masters turned the wreckage of the Manufactorum into weapons. Molten pipes became flamers, torn armor became shields. When the sun of Moribar finally broke the horizon, a dull, blood-red glow filtered through clouds of soot. The enemy unleashed their final weapon, the infernal engine. It was a god of fire and iron, towering over the plains, its limbs made of screaming souls. With every step it took, the ground wept molten tears. We could have run. We could have withdrawn to orbit and bombarded the surface into silence. But that is not our way. The Forge Father gave one command: hold the flame. And so we did. We gathered our wounded, we set our traps, and we prepared the fire that would consume us all. The final day of Moribar was not dawn, it was detonation. When the infernal engine reached the Manufactorum gates, the world itself seemed to scream. Its claws tore through stone and steel alike. Every blow it struck was a prayer to its dark gods. Yet for every strike, a salamander stood in its path. I remember the heat, brother. It was like standing inside a star. Armor cracked, skin blistered, air turned to glass. We could see the fire dancing in the shadows of our helmets. The enemy's laughter echoed in the Vox, cruel, mechanical, endless. But we did not answer with words. We answered with flame. Brother Dravak led the first charge, his hammer wreathed in liquid fire, his voice raised in the canticle of ash. He struck the engine's leg and shattered it. He was crushed a moment later, but his blow staggered the beast. That was all we needed. The Forge Father himself climbed the creature's back, cutting through cables and screaming circuits with a blade that glowed like the sun. Each step burned his armor away. Each strike cost him blood, but he did not stop. When he reached the heart of the monster, he drove his hammer into its core and roared Vulcan's name. The explosion turned night into day. The Manufactorum vanished in a column of white flame that reached the heavens. The shockwave leveled the plains, and for a moment, all was silence. Then came the roar, the sound of fire reclaiming its purity. When the smoke cleared, the infernal engine was gone. The Forge Father stood at the crater's edge, his armor in ruins, his flesh blackened, but alive. Around him lay what remained of the Salamanders, 50 from the 200 who had descended, broken, burned, but breathing. The siege was over. Moribar was ash, but the people lived. That, brother, is what it means to hold the flame. Victory, if you can call it that, is a strange thing. It burns as fiercely as defeat. When the survivors of Moribar were brought aboard the fleet, they did not cheer. They did not raise their banners. They stood in silence, covered in soot and blood. They watched as the Forge Father placed the last of the fallen upon the pyre. One by one, their bodies burned, their ashes carried into the void. We did not mourn. We remembered. Moribar taught us that salvation and sacrifice are one, that to protect is to pay. Every flame must consume something to exist, and on Moribar, that something was us. Even now, when I walk the forges of Nocturne, I can still feel the echoes of that battle. The heat beneath my feet feels like the breath of that world, still burning in memory. The sound of hammers striking anvil carries the rhythm of those last heartbeats. Some say the ghosts of Moribar still walk the forges, not in sorrow, but in vigilance. When a salamander hesitates before the brand, he may feel a hand upon his shoulder, steadying him. When the flame flares too bright, a shadow may temper it. These are not hauntings, they are reminders. Because Moribar was more than a siege. It was a forge. It shaped us anew. It taught us that fire is not to be feared, nor worshipped, but understood. And understanding comes only through endurance. So remember, brother, when you hear the name Moribar, Do not think of death. Think of defiance. Think of what it means to stand before the storm and refuse to bow. The world is full of Moribars, places of ruin, hearts of darkness, moments when the void seems stronger than the light. But if we carry the lesson of that siege, if we remember the fire that would not die, then we are never truly lost. The Forge Father's words remain with us. Hold the flame. Simple, eternal, unbreakable. So hold it close, as we did. When your armor cracks, when your strength fails, when all seems lost, remember Moribar. Remember the brothers who stood in the storm and turned their pain into purpose. Remember that fire does not fear the dark. For as long as one salamander lives, the fire endures. Go now, brother. Return to the forge. Let the memory of Moribar temper your soul and steel your hand. The stars will burn low. The worlds will fall. But the flame, our flame, will remain. Until the Father returns. Endure. Through the fire, we are made. Through the fire, we endure.